Picture a sprawling encampment in the deep wilderness. Right in the middle of their tents sits a structure radiating an absolute, perfect, divine presence. This proximity creates an immediate physical crisis. Absolute holiness and human impurity react violently together. If flawed, mortal humans come into direct, unfiltered contact with this perfect presence, the reaction is instantaneous and fatal. We see exactly how volatile this is when two priests, Aaron's sons Nadab and Abihu, walk into the sanctuary carrying unauthorized or strange fire. They are immediately consumed by flames. The divine presence destroys what is impure. To keep the rest of the camp from suffering the same fate, the people receive a highly specific survival manual. We call it the Book of Leviticus. It functions as a rigid set of blueprints designed to keep the people alive while living next to the divine. Surviving the divine requires the society to divide all of daily life into three strict mechanisms of separation: sacrifice, purity, and morality. The first mandatory checkpoint stands right at the entrance of the tabernacle courtyard, a massive bronze altar. Nothing enters the inner sanctum without passing this site of continuous sacrifice. This diagram outlines the manual's rigorous system of 5 specific offerings: burnt, meat or grain, peace, sin, and trespass. Each path requires specific elements, like livestock or fine flour, to address different aspects of human failure or devotion. The mechanical logic of these sacrifices is straightforward substitution. When an individual commits a wrong, they bring an unblemished animal to the altar and press their hands on its head, formally transferring their guilt onto a physical substitute. The text explicitly states that the life of the flesh is in the blood. When the priest sprinkles that blood against the altar, it formally makes an atonement, a covering for the person's soul. Without this continuous, daily cycle of blood atonement acting as a buffer, the camp's accumulated guilt would reach a critical mass, inviting immediate divine destruction. The manual then shifts its focus from the altar to the bodies of the people themselves. It introduces a strict binary concept, categorizing the human body and the physical environment into states of being clean or unclean. Look at these dietary restrictions. To be considered clean, a land animal must have a fully cloven hoof and chew the cud. Anything outside these specific parameters falls into the unclean category. Severe physical impurity triggers extreme isolation protocols. If a person develops a visible, infectious skin disease like leprosy, they are pronounced unclean and completely removed from the camp to live alone. These rules enforce a continuous state of physical readiness. They guarantee that normal human conditions, disease, death, or diet, never accidentally breach the camp's perimeter and defile the central tabernacle. Even with daily sacrifices and purity laws, residual impurity accumulates. To handle this, Chapter 16 outlines the single most high-stakes day of the calendar. The Day of Atonement is a centralized annual ritual designed to clear the sanctuary of all lingering defilement. This flowchart illustrates the day's central ritual, involving 2 goats. The high priest casts lots to determine their roles. One arrow points to the goat sacrificed to cleanse the physical sanctuary, and the other points to the animal designated as the scapegoat. The high priest then presses both his hands onto the head of the surviving scapegoat. In doing so, he formally confesses and transfers the nation's collective, unaddressed sins directly onto the animal. An appointed handler then leads this scapegoat away, physically carrying the impurity completely out of the geographic camp and into the deep wilderness. This annual macro ritual acts as a system-wide hard reset. It clears the slate, bringing the entire camp back to a baseline state of purity to survive another year. The text eventually moves the camera outward, leaving the strict confines of the tabernacle courtyard to examine the everyday fields, markets, and homes of the Israelites. Here, we find the overarching moral thesis of the book. The people are commanded to be holy in their daily lives, simply because the God dwelling among them is holy. This demand for holiness dictates specific economic practices. Merchants are strictly required to use honest weights and accurate balances in all their market transactions to ensure economic justice. Farmers are ordered to leave the edges of their fields unharvested so the poor can gather food. The text also issues a direct command to love and protect the stranger sojourning in their land. True Levitical holiness demands an uncompromising moral architecture applied to how citizens treat the vulnerable people living next door. All of these laws scale up into an ultimate macro rhythm of time. Every 50th year, the society enters the Year of Jubilee. The Year of Jubilee is a mandated, universal economic pardon that resets property and labor across the entire nation. The Jubilee triggers a massive societal reset. Universal liberty is proclaimed, all outstanding debts are canceled, and indentured servants are released to return to their original families and ancestral lands. As the book closes in chapters 26 and 27, it presents the society with a stark, unavoidable choice: total obedience to these structures, or rebellion. The outcomes are absolute. Adherence brings flourishing blessings, rain, and peace. Rebellion guarantees catastrophic curses: severe famine, rampant disease, and exile from the land. Leviticus is the uncompromising blueprint for how a flawed, mortal society can manage to survive and even thrive while living side by side with the divine.